for generations, decades, whatever, we have had some person who comes and tells us what is going to happen in the future, right? These were very respected people. I had two people in my family who were very good, that chief ministers would consult them about the size of the cabinet, number of ministers, days for swearing in. They were very good astrologers, and some of the things that they predicted was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so then you get a feeling that, oh, if I ask him or her, mostly him, what my future looks like, they will be able to tell me, and I will be able to control the future, right? So I have never found that very interesting. One was my friend's father, and another was a cousin or a second cousin. So both these people were very good. The whole world would come and consult them for astrology, and but I never consulted them, because I believed if God's plans for me are good, it will continue to be good. I don't need to check with somebody, agents here, who will tell me what is happening and what is right, what is wrong, kind of a thing. And it is easy for us to laugh at people who believe in astrology or things like that, but many of us do, right? I have friends who believe in astrology, though personally I don't, but I do believe in some kind of astrology when I go and attend meetings where there are economists who say what is going to happen, who say that the price of crude will be $100, $150, $200, whatever. And there are people who will come and say, I think the US is going to do a soft landing, a hard landing, China will do a hard landing, soft landing, etc., etc., etc. And there are people who say, oh, PSUs in India have done badly for 9 years, then 1 year they have done very well. Now is the time for PSUs to do well. Now in the next term of Mr. Narendra Modi, the PSUs will fly. So it's a great time to be investing in PSUs. I am not saying any of this. You see, you look at my face, you know that I am being sarcastic. We do not know what is going to happen. When we do not know what is going to happen, you do, and you want to still create wealth, you keep investing your money in a bunch of assets that is likely to create wealth for you, create income for you. Now, one of those assets which has created wealth, so-called wealth for people, at least in for people who were investing in rupee terms, not in dollar terms, is gold. So some portion of your money should be in gold. So is SGB a good idea? Maybe it's a good idea. At least 2.5% is guaranteed, and the capital gains is tax free, if any. Right? So have I put money in SGB? Yes, I have put money in SGB. So am I sure what going ahead, what is going to make money? Is it going to be debt? Is it going to be equity? I am very clear that if it's a 10-year view, it has got to be equity. It can't be debt. However, some portion of my money I want to remove from equity. So what do? I put it into MAA, which is a multi-asset allocating fund. Now, in a multi-asset allocating fund which has done so well so far, it means that it has got a lot of equity. So please remember, these are equity assets as much as your equity funds. Not that bad, because they will have a lesser amount of equity. Maybe it will have 65% equity. Now that's almost like a balance fund, right? So well, maybe it's got 30% equity, 35% of arbitrage, so therefore it looks like 65%, whatever. But there is equity, there is debt, there is risk. So please understand that multi-asset allocators have risk, multi-cap funds have risk. So don't think that, oh, I'm in multi-asset, so there is no risk. There is no such thing called a risk-free investment. So largely, when I don't know what is going to do well over the next 4 years or 5 years, and I need the money over the next 4 or 5 years, I don't mind taking the risk of putting money in multi-asset allocators, because from a taxation point of view also it is better than putting money in a debt fund. Therefore, I am not putting money because I think there is less risk. Now, the problem is when I tell somebody in a public forum like this that you should put money in a multi-asset allocator, it's a good chance that the client will call up the agent or the advisor and say, Subra says you should put money in multi-asset. Correct, you should put money in multi-asset. I agree with that. But look at it this way. If you have 15% in equity and 85% in debt, then the multi-asset fund has to be funded from your debt. If you have 15% in debt and 85% in equity, then the multi-asset has to be funded from your equity, because the equity person, what I am trying to say is 85% in equity, you need to reduce some risk, so go into multi-asset. So when you when the equity market falls, your multi-asset will fall less than your 85%, which is in pure equity or in equity funds, right? So I am trying to reduce risk for that person, and when a person has got 85% in debt and he puts into multi-asset, I am trying to increase the return for that person. I am not trying to reduce risk for this person. He is already 85% in debt and 15% in equity, so the standard deviation or the fluctuation in his portfolio is not going to be very high, because only 15% is going to fluctuate, right? So understand, when somebody says, when I say put money in multi-asset, because I don't know whether the next 3-4 years equity will give enough returns to justify being in equity, right? Because you can get a 9% today. I'm ignoring taxes for just for calculation purposes. So I can get 8-9% today in good quality, decent quality debt instruments. I can get maybe I can get 12-13% in equity, right? Is it worth taking that risk for that, getting that extra 3%, whereas capital preservation is very unlikely in a pure equity thing, whereas in something like debt, the chances are, if there is no default, you will get back all your money with the specified rate of interest. So it's a call that you have to take depending on the risk reward ratio where you are, how much risk you are willing to take, and how much risk you are willing to take over a time period. Now if the time period is 2 years, I would suggest nothing of this. None of this, but just go and put money in bank deposits and pay the tax, whatever is applicable. But if it is 5 years, there is temptation to put your money in equity savings fund with just 15% in equity and 85% in debt like instruments, which could include arbitrage for taxation purposes. But if you have got say 10-year view, then, and you are willing to take the standard deviation, the fluctuations in the price, right, beta, with all those kind of things, then just go with equity and do an SIP. Ideally, all investment should be in the form of SIP. What I mean is continuously buying assets which will improve your situation. Continuously buying income producing assets, which means debt, equity and real estate. I don't consider gold as income producing asset. It produces no income. I don't even consider it as an asset, but it provides a good rock solid base in your portfolio. Like for example, if you have a 50 crore portfolio and putting about 1 crore or 2 crore or maybe even 3 crores in gold, means at some stage, where if in the worst case scenario, if you need to have some liquidity, that's one solid place from where you can get liquidity, because reasonably it might stand up to inflation, right? So therefore some gold, some equity, some debt. Right now no clue what percentage, then multi-asset fund is a good place to be in, especially if you are excessively overweighted equity like I am. So have I invested in multi-asset funds? Yes, I have invested in 3 multi-asset funds. Have I invested in gold? Yes, I have invested in SGB. I have subscribed even recently in September 2023 to gold, right, SGB. So these things I keep doing. No, though largely I'm 85-90% in equity, with the remaining 10% I keep fooling around. But please don't take my advice, because for me that 10% is enough to look after myself for the rest of my life, and I also have a decent income from dividends, etc. So my case is going to be very different. Check out what suits you. If you are more into equity and you want to reduce risk, multi-asset fund is a good fund. If you are excessively into debt and you want to improve return, again multi-asset is a good, but check out one thing. One problem is all multi-assets are not equal. Some multi-assets will have foreign equity, some multi-assets will have more gold, some will have more equity. Check out what suits you, and maybe you could put into 2-3 multi-asset funds. That does not really matter. And keep track of the risk that you are taking, and if you think at some stage the market has gone up too much, maybe you can pull more money out of equity and put into multi-asset fund. but please compare, while comparing multi-asset funds, see where they are investing, because that is going to change things completely. If a fund house is investing 70% in equity, which is Indian equity, foreign equity, etc., then you have to be worried that if the correlation between the two equity markets is not too great, that's good. But if it is great, then both could rise up and fall at the same time, which means your multi-asset fund could be more risky than maybe your domestic equity fund, right? So be careful about all that, and then make your investments. Thank you.